Mike versus the world back again. This topic: can Tennessee win the 2022 national championship? Obviously, Tennessee, as we record this, Mike sitting 6-0, coming off a big win versus Alabama. Mike, so can they win the title in 22? The answer is absolutely not. They are a good football team. They have a lot of talent. They're explosive on offense. Their defense doesn't look fantastic. I think they're going to be in every game they're going to be in here. But here's what I'm going to give their greatest strength, their greatest weakness. I had a chance to see one Joshua Heupel coach every game that he coached prior to Tennessee, and there are just some times where all of a sudden a defense figures them out. Go look up UCF versus Tulsa and see what our record are. Tulsa ran out this 3-3-5 defense, had Heupel all kinds of confused. You get pressure on the quarterback, all of a sudden those large windows aren't open. You make him dump the ball down to check downs, and all of a sudden that offense looks a lot different. I think there's going to be a game where defense is going to figure it out. The air raid has gone away for a bit of a reason. I think some defenses and coordinators are starting to get smarter. There's not as many of them, but I think at some point that offense gets stymied. I don't know if I trust the defense to shut a bunch of people down. So while I think they'll be in games, I think their greatest strength, their offense at some point will come out to be their greatest weakness. Ergo, they'll have a loss. Ergo, they're probably not in the national championship picture.
Well, okay. So let's say that loss is in the SEC championship game. Let's say they beat Kentucky, which is a difficult team to beat, but they're at home. And let's say they beat Georgia on the road, which would be an upset. They're going to be underdogs for that game. And they go to the SEC championship and they lose a game. They could still win the national championship with a loss. They just can't lose that Georgia game. So it really all comes down to, honestly, that Georgia game is like a elimination game, and it's an elimination game on the road against a team that had a great defense last year, has a really good defense this year. But the reason I believe is because I thought that certain teams, they could rush the passer. Pitt has a really good defensive line. I know people are going to say, well, Pitt. How's Pitt? Well, they got a really good defensive line. And that was a back and forth game. And they ended up pulling it out in the end, 34-27. LSU has some premier pass rushers. Ali Gay, BJ Ojolari, they destroyed them. Couldn't even slow down the offense, couldn't get to Hooker, and Hooker was just a very, very efficient quarterback when it comes to making a decision whether to run, pass, get out of the pocket, whatever. In Alabama, okay, and I'm not going to mention Florida. They don't have really good edge guys. Alabama, Will Anderson, Dallas Turner, on and on. This was supposed to be the team that was supposed to get in his face, make him uncomfortable, and shut him down. And he lit them up, and he did whatever he wanted against them. Now, Alabama's got some weaknesses in the secondary, obviously, but this offensive line, better than we expected, I believe. They're going to keep them clean. And I think this offense can put up a lot of points against a Georgia team that doesn't have the chasers that they had last season. They're missing the guys like Nakobe Dean and Channing Tindall who could get to the football half a yard faster than the guys can this season. And I think we're going to see that. I don't think anybody can stop this offense. Now, I'm not predicting a national championship because there's so many things in play here, and it depends on matchups, right? They match up well against an Ohio State because that's just a shootout. They don't match up as well against a Michigan because Michigan's going to pound the ball, and that defense could get worn down. They match up well against, say, an Ole Miss and in Alabama, as we've seen, but they don't match up as well against Georgia, and that could be the game that trips them up. But absolutely, they get past Georgia. It's Missouri, South Carolina, Vanderbilt. We're talking SEC championship game. They've already proven that they could beat Alabama. They might even beat them worse. Bryce Young kept them in that game. And then
Kentucky would like a word. They still have to play Kentucky, which is not a terrible defensive team. Now, I don't think they win that one, but stranger things have happened. And you tell me if Nick Saban and Josh Heupel end up in a rematch, Saban's not going to have himself ready for that. You're telling me Saban's not licking his chops right now, drinking his Diet Coke, sitting in his Mercedes-Benz dealership right now, just thinking about that opportunity to play Heupel again. We all forget there was a field goal in the air that tied that gives Alabama an opportunity, right? Yes. They missed that field goal because of some stupid play calling and a penalty. I think actually backs them up a bunch of yards, and they end up having to settle for that field goal, right? So you tell me that Nick Saban's not licking his chops to go at another Josh Heupel opportunity? And then if you had to bet any amount of money that was important to you, Nick versus Josh one more time this year, that Saban doesn't figure something else out?
No, I would take Josh Heupel, and I'll tell you why. Because the best player offensively for Tennessee wasn't even playing. Cedric Tillman wasn't even on the field. And they couldn't handle Jalen Hyatt. They couldn't handle Brew McCoy. They couldn't handle anything in that offense. You put Cedric Tillman out there, too? Who are you going to cover him with? The Alabama secondary had no chance against a limited receiving core for Tennessee. You put the best receiver out there, it's going to just absolutely wreak havoc with that secondary. So Nick Saban is a better coach. He's the GOAT. He's the best coach to ever live in college football. But Kirby Smart's a better coach. He's won a national championship. Josh
fair enough. Yeah, fair enough.
Still not there. But, I mean, they put a 52 points against Alabama without their best offensive player. They're going to put up points against anybody. I really didn't believe heading into this game that they couldn't be stopped offensively because it's simple what they do. You've seen it at Central Florida. It's not a lot of different plays, right? It's keep the quarterback clean and get your guys off, free release and make the right decisions and let your talent do the work and keep them off balance with the run and Hooker being a mobile quarterback. It's not rocket science. So I thought this could be game planned against. But, Florida tried it, gave up 38. LSU tried it, gave up 40. Pitt, pretty good defense, gave up 34. Alabama tried it, gave up 52. Nobody's going to stop this offense. Now, again, saying they're going to win a national championship is kind of ridiculous. They're 6-0. That's a way overreaction. But can they? 100% they can, and they can lose a game doing it.
That game is at Georgia. I think that's a whole different ball game this last Saturday if it's at Alabama. I don't know. I think some of the advantage of playing at home, and that's what you get, by the way, when you have a schedule, when you play at home, you get some of those advantages. I think Tennessee had some advantages playing at home. That game later in November is at Georgia. I think that's going to be a tough test. And we'll see how Tennessee responds at that point, too. I think they're a great team. I think when this offense is rolling, it's as fun as anything in college football, Mike. But when it stubs its toe, it usually stubs its toe pretty hard. If anyone gets pressure on the quarterback, and to your point, that's a deal breaker. Can they overcome turnovers? That was the other thing against Alabama. They kept the turnover margin clean. Can they overcome if Hooker throws a couple of turnovers? Right, if there's more than a couple of fumbles, right? Can they overcome that? I still think they're a great team. But I don't think they can win the title this year. I think they're a couple years away. And that defense has to get more consistent too.
Okay, but it's getting better. That's the other thing too. I want to point out.
Upswing.
They gave up 49 points, and it looks like that defense sucks. This was a shootout. That Bryce Young is the best quarterback in the country. To me, hands down, the number one pick in the draft, probably. And he did some magical things to extend that game, to keep them in that game, to keep the points flowing. Stetson Bennett won a national championship. All respect to him, but he's not Bryce Young. He's not close to Bryce Young. Will Levis, not even close. So, I mean, they've done it against the best quarterback that you could possibly go against this season, unless there's a rematch. You go in there, C.J. Stroud. He's good. He's going to put up points. That receiver core is hard to deal with, but he doesn't have the downfield vision of a Bryce Young. When things break down, Bryce Young sees things. C.J. Stroud locks on one receiver, maybe goes to his second, and then throws the ball away. Michigan, J.J. McCarthy, DJ Uiagalelei, no. So to me, the defense is improving slightly. And you're right. They're going to have to really play better defense if they're going to win a national championship. But they're starting to get that confidence. Kentucky's a scary game. Georgia is the game to get past. They get past Georgia. This is one scary, scary football team. And I know you're a little jaded because he was at Central Florida. And
I'm actually not. That's the rare win.
Not jaded, not like angry.
That worked out perfect for everybody.
Yeah, but you've seen warts in Josh Heupel that other people have, is what I'm saying. Like when you see somebody in scouting, one of the things that if I see a kid more and more and more, think of Fitzpatrick, right? Great player. I saw him so many times from 8th grade to his senior year that I had him moved from cornerback to safety because I didn't think he could play corner. It was paralysis by overanalysis. And I think sometimes that may be what the Central Florida fans are saying, that, listen, this guy wasn't that great with us. Okay, well, he also didn't have Hendon Hooker. He didn't have Cedric Tillman. He didn't have Jalen Hyde. He didn't have this juggernaut.
He had Dylan Gabriel. He had Gabe Davis. I mean, he had Traquan. He had players. I mean, sure, we're not at the level of that. I would tell you, if you really want to understand Josh Heupel, look back at 2018 Josh Heupel. That's the year with Mackenzie Milton at quarterback. The offense was much more dynamic. He would run the football with the quarterback. Obviously, unfortunately, that's what ended up getting Mackenzie hurt. But that was part of what his offense was. He did not do that with Dylan Gabriel. Dylan Gabriel was back in the pocket, one read. If it's not there, throw it into the ground. You saw that for 3 years before both of them moved on. Hendon Hooker has that ability to tuck the ball and run. I think that's the difference between the Heupel offense that we saw in the last couple of years at UCF. Again, I'm rooting for the guy. Actually, I really like Josh Heupel. I think this is the rare win-win for everybody involved in the UCF you have Tennessee split situation. I just think that Tennessee's going to stub their toe at some point. I believe in the fact, Mike, you have to earn it, right? You have to figure out ways to get the battle scars, to callous those things over and win it again. Tennessee hasn't had one of those yet. I think they have to earn it along the way. I think Georgia's the one that puts the elbow in the eye.
Yeah, could be, and I think they just had one. I think that scoop and score, overcoming that and still winning that football game at home. I think this might be the thing that did it. But listen, it's easy to say no because essentially it's Tennessee versus the field. So I get the field is going to probably win this battle, but Tennessee could certainly win the national championship. So that's my
Tennessee's a good team. Check back November 5th, and we'll figure out who won this one.